Excellent. There you go. This is usually where the crowd erupts and gives me lots of applause, but no, that's okay. No, it's been fantastic. This is just a great opportunity to live stream this presentation and share it with people around the world. So now what I'd love to do is get some of the questions from you out there. And if you have gone through Google Plus and joined this Hangout, or if you've gone onto Twitter and gone with hashtag LBL Hangout, then you can certainly ask us the questions. So without any further ado, we might go to a question. I'm just going to let our credits roll there in the background. And we're ready for that first question. Who's up? Anyone out there with a question?
Hey, D'Arcy. It looks like there's a couple of questions online. One of which is, what is the most challenging part of living below the line?
Okay, I'll just repeat that question for the people who might be finding it hard to hear. The question was, what is the hardest thing about doing live below the line? For me, it's definitely a mental game. It's not a physical game. Certainly you are eating less, but your choice is less. What you have to do is you have to put quality to one side and just give up on that and just go with quantity. So it's definitely the oats, the lentils, the rice, the simple things in life. I generally have enough to eat, and if people think I'm a bit skinny in the camera, that's okay, that's what I'm normally like. But yeah, it's just about, you know that your choice of foods is very narrow, and it's that toughest thing is sticking to that, not be seduced by all those, well, there were cupcakes hanging around the office today, which was a bit of a killer. So mentally, I think it's harder than physically.
It looks like there's another question. Somebody's saying that they're enthusiastic, but they don't know where to start. Do you have any recommendations from your own experience? And I'm assuming they're referring to volunteering and things like that.
Okay, so the question was that they're enthusiastic, but they're not so sure where to start. It's a tough one. It's really tough. And obviously, myself personally, I started in exactly the same place. You know, you've got this big, scary, grey cloud of the world and the problems and the topics and the issues. But I suppose for me, it's about following your own passions. It's about doing the things that you love doing and then just learning more about the world and how you can be effective. And the best thing is, of course, through resources. I mean, learning more. Like I said, throughout the presentation, learning from things like the Millennium Development Goals, or our resources online, reading books, those sorts of things, make a huge difference in the way that we see the world, and then we then go and interact with it. For myself personally, I think volunteering is a really rich thing to do. It's such a learning experience. And I think volunteering locally is just as important as anything you might do overseas. We often think that, you know, we go over and help the poor people in developing countries, but usually, well, not usually, or more times than not, we end up learning more than we could ever give. And so for me, yeah, it's about learning from the world, participating in it, and just listening and being a part of it and enjoying those things. You know, we're not going to do it all tomorrow, but it's a matter of just participating and growing your successes as you go along. You can see a few other people have joined us on the Hangout. This is good.
D'Arcy, Will here from New Zealand. Can you hear me?
I can, yes, Will.
Oh, technology. It's amazing. D'Arcy, I had a question. What about corruption in some of these places that, you know, that there's incredible poverty, but I guess a lot of conversation I have, people are worried that if we send money, resources over to these places, where a lot of it ends up in the hands of corrupt bureaucrats and politicians. What do you think about that? Is it still worth helping out, still worth giving?
Cool. So, thanks, Will, from New Zealand, is it?
That's right.
Nice.
Auckland, I believe. Yeah, I'm in Auckland. It's 5 to 12 midday here.
Oh, this is the beauty of Google Hangouts. You get to interact with the world. It's incredible. The question was around corruption, you know, and how do we deal with corruption? It's pretty easy to give up. Another question I get asked quite often, and we'll call out if I'm paraphrasing you here incorrectly, but is, you know, the example of Mugabe in Zimbabwe. Where do you start with something like that? And for me, like we said in the presentation, it's around looking at the things that make a big difference and supporting local authorities so that they can support the people around them. So in a country like Zimbabwe, where it's very hard to be tackling the top of the tree, you work at those grassroots levels so that people can force change from a bottom-up process, no matter how small or how long that might take. And corruption is one of those things that, like I said, it exists everywhere in the world, and it takes time. When you look at a country like Spain or these sorts of places in Europe, and corruption was prevalent up until probably 20 years ago, and it took a long time for them to be overcome. And in Africa, there are some great things happening. And thanks to organisations like Transparency International and Global Witness, yeah, I really think we can learn more about corruption and make huge change in the world. India is a great example of that, if you ever see any examples through there, of community accountability. Thanks, Will.
D'Arcy,
Thank you.
D'Arcy, it's Michael here from Australia. I've got a question. You mentioned that you're going touring around Canada with Ramesh Beres to talk about the end of polio. If we're interested in you coming to speak at a club or district or community group or school, how can people organise a presentation with you?
Cool, thanks Michael. Another one from Australia, but a question for Canada. Lovely, how international we are. Yeah, I mean, the trip around Canada is to try and galvanise that community support so that we can get that community support and go to the government and say, hey look, the end of polio is something that's wanted for the people. We're speaking on their behalf and gathering all the information and the support to take it to that higher level of their own governments and then the UN General Assembly. So for us to give a presentation like this, which goes down so well in places like Rotary clubs and schools, basically they just need to go to the website, the Global Poverty Project website, and there will be a toggle and there will be a link that says to host their own presentation. And then we'll be able to get around, get in touch, and set up a fantastic trip across Canada, hopefully delivering lots of presentations and contextualising how we can be a part of not only ending polio, but ending extreme poverty within a generation. So, Mick, I hope that answers your question. I'm getting a head nod. That's good.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And it looks like we have a new person come and join us as well. Do we have a question from that one?
D'Arcy, you have another question online. Because it's Live Below the Line week, they're particularly asking what you got out of your Live Below the Line experience.
Yeah, fantastic question. It's significant. I would say the Live Below the Line campaign is absolutely transformational because you learn so much. It's not about just starving and feeling sorry for people, because you don't. Your whole world changes. You get on these lenses that let you see the world in a very simplistic but effective way of life. And I think the appreciation for me personally that I get of people who live in extreme poverty doing this campaign is significant. And it's not that I feel sorry for them, which I do, of course, when you're living life like people have to live, but just the amazing resilience and resourcefulness that these people must have to live below the line every day for their whole lives. The other thing are the conversations. There are so many conversations that happen around the office, people putting food. Everyone just wants to give you food. Like, oh, here, can't I just give you this? And it's like, no, anything I put in my mouth has to be a cost, and it goes into my daily budget of $1.50 here in the United States. So the conversations are great, and the inspiration is also significant. People learning about what you're doing and questioning, just going, well, you're crazy. Well, yeah, maybe to do it for 5 days, but think of the people that don't get to choose to do this. The world's a bit crazy in that way. So there's a lot of inspiration that happens with it as well. Do we have any last questions there? Those who have joined us throughout, thank you very much. Hopefully my voice isn't too boring at this stage. But any last questions out there? Twitter, Google+, Hangouts on air?
D'Arcy, I've got one last question. I've currently just made my live below the line breakfast. It's because it's 8 a.m. here, and I've got a hard-boiled egg on wholemeal toast. What's your favourite live below the line meal?
Well, I wish it was a hard-boiled egg on whole grain bread. How are you doing that? Now, you're not allowed to beg, borrow, steal, be gifted, or whatever. Obviously, eggs are cheaper. Where are you, Michael?
I'm in Perth, but I'm taking a bit of a hit. I must admit, I'm probably not having that many meals, so this is like a treat.
Yeah, actually, stupidly, I've been doing Live Below the Line for 5 weeks as a big advocacy program, and I'd have an egg once a week, and it was my highlight. But my favourite Live Below the Line meal is oats. Absolutely oats. You start off your day with a big bowl of oats, and it kind of just feels like it carries you through most of the day. Most of the day, I should reiterate. It's definitely not for all of the day. What is it? It's about 8 p.m. here in the US, and I haven't had my dinner yet, so I'm scratching the ceiling to get to my lentils and rice. But I think, like I said, if you throw taste out the door, you can probably have enough to eat. Cool. Well, guys, I think we might wrap it up there. Thank you so much for the questions from people who participated through Google Plus and joined us on this Hangout. A huge thank you to Google for having us in this evening. This is absolutely groundbreaking stuff for the Global Poverty Project. We're doing a live stream presentation, but I also know for Google as well, as they really launch into this fantastic idea and technology of Google Hangouts. So thank you everyone for joining us. And you know, if you didn't sign up for Live Below the Line this year, you've got a couple more weeks to get involved if you really want to. And then, of course, next year we'll be running it again. Thanks for joining us, and all the best.
Thanks, D'Arcy.
Thanks, D'Arcy.